What I want to say is that what you see here is a spontaneous heart of extreme generosity, which people selling properties and giving the whole value of their properties. I imagine many of them were paying much more than the value of 10%, a tithe. But what these people were addressing was a particular situation. You see that in Acts 2, some 3,000 people respond to the message. And a great number of these people are visitors to Jerusalem from different parts of the world, different parts of Asia and Africa, other places, who have come into Jerusalem, and they are part of the experience of hearing Peter preach and responding to Peter's message in Acts chapter 2 about the kingdom of God, about the Messiah and belief in the Messiah. And then the number expands to about 5,000 people in Acts chapter 4. And so these people voluntarily, there's no mention of tithing, but they voluntarily, out of the goodness of their hearts, they give very generously to make sure that this group of people who are not from Jerusalem have a place to live, have a place to stay, have provisions to eat meals while they learn the teachings of the apostles. The apostles are teaching kingdom of God truths, the same kingdom of God truths that Jesus had taught them. And these people are learning before they go back to where they're from. And so the church came together in a very loving way in order to provide these needs for people and be helpful and be generous to one another. And so it's not a situation where some commandment is given about generosity that applies to all Christians in all epochs. For example, if there's a quote cult leader, end of quote, nowadays who said, well, if you're really dedicated to Christianity, you must sell all your property and give all your money to me. That would be a tremendous deceiving misapplication of what happened in Acts 2 and Acts chapter 4 under the leadership of the apostles, who were never money grubbing, greedy types at all, but who simply organized distribution of things to help people out. And you see here, once again, it's according to what people have determined in their hearts that they are to give. If someone gives because this is what they have available and they have decided to give 5% of their supposed income, then they are giving generously 5% of their income. They are not robbing 5% from God because they really owe 10% if they're really true Christians. That would be just a total misapplication of mixing Old Testament tithing with New Covenant generosity and simplicity of giving from the heart. And so that, I think that illustrates that, and how people became aware of people's needs and organized. I think 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and 9 are probably related to that situation that Agabus prophesied about when Paul and Barnabas were selected to be in charge of organizing some of the giving, the generosity of giving to be taken to the land of Judea where the famine hit hardest. Now, Paul knows that he was from the tribe of Benjamin. He knew he was not a Levite, so he was not exacting a tithe from anyone. If you read the whole picture of the ministry of Paul, you see that Paul's preference was to work with his hands, like he did in Thessalonica, as a tent maker, and not depend on the giving or generosity of anyone to sustain his ministry. Now, when he was in prison, which he was at the time of the writing of Philippians, then he did need to depend on the generosity of a few people, the people at Philippi. But once again, the promises of God to take care of people who were generous hearted. They do apply to the people under Old Testament tithing. If they would tithe faithfully and maintain their obligations, God would take care of them. God would rebuke the devourer for their sake. But that is not addressed directly to Christians. But to Christians, it is mentioned in both in 2 Corinthians and here in Philippians that, God would prosper them, God would bless them, God would take care of them and honor them for their free will generosity in giving from the heart. And that's what Christians should think about. They shouldn't think in terms of owing a debt from God that might not always be possible. Sometimes people give generously in a way that's 10% or more. Sometimes they give in a way that's less than that. But there's no legal obligation to be under a tithing system in New Covenant Christianity.
Is this type of giving, would you call that a gift specific Christians might have? Or is it something we should all aspire to?
In Romans chapter 12, it is, he who has the gift of being generous to do it generously, do it lovingly, do it, with con ganas, do it with all your heart. I think different people at different times and in different situations, somebody needs a place to stay, a place to live, and a Christian invites him into his home and shares hospitality. All that's part of the same picture. It's not just giving to a Christian organization, which is a wonderful thing to do also. A Christian organization that really preaches and ministers the truths of the kingdom of God is certainly worth our support. But also when, people are in need of friendship, to hang out with them and offer them friendship and offer them conversations. That's part of the generosity of giving, just as well as the giving of material things.